The notification sound from my wife's phone cut through the midnight silence like a blade. I lay there in our king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling while Serena's fingers danced across her screen beside me. The blue glow illuminated her face, highlighting that satisfied smirk I'd grown to despise. "Working late again?" I asked, though we both knew the answer. She didn't even look up. "Just posting some photos from the conference." Conference. Right. The marketing summit where she'd spent 3 days with Brent Mallory, her company's newest golden boy. 28 years old, trust fund baby turned entrepreneur, the kind of guy who wore designer sneakers to board meetings and called himself a disruptor. I rolled over, pretending to sleep, but my mind was racing. 3 months of late nights, mysterious phone calls, and sudden business trips. 3 months of Serena coming home with that glow that had nothing to do with professional success and everything to do with whatever she was doing with Mr. Disruption himself. My phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Serena had tagged me in a post. The image made my stomach drop. There she was, my wife of 12 years, pressed close to Brent on some beach. Her hand rested on his chest, both of them laughing at some private joke. But it wasn't the photo that destroyed me. It was the caption. "Finally found my real partner in business and life. Some connections just feel right from the start." My real partner. I stared at those 3 words until they burned into my retinas. 12 years of marriage, and this was how she chose to end it? Not with a conversation, not even with a fight. With a social media post at midnight, broadcasting her betrayal to our friends, family, and colleagues. The comments were already rolling in, heart emojis from her girlfriends. "You two look amazing together," from people who'd been at our wedding. "About time you found someone who deserves you," from her sister, who'd never liked me anyway. Serena's phone buzzed again. Then again. She was eating up the attention, probably reading every comment with that same satisfied smile. I set my phone down carefully and closed my eyes. In the morning, I'd be expected to play the part of the devastated husband, the underdog who got left behind while his successful wife moved on to bigger and better things. Everyone would pity me, maybe even blame me for not being enough for someone like Serena Porter, VP of Marketing at Feldman Associates. But here's what they didn't know about Alex Porter, freelance IT specialist and apparently soon-to-be ex-husband. I'd spent 15 years learning how information really worked in this digital age. How to find it, how to use it, and most importantly, how to make sure the right people saw it at exactly the right time. Serena wanted to play games with social media. She wanted to humiliate me publicly while she ran off with her boy toy. Game on. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next morning came too soon and not soon enough. I was already dressed and drinking coffee in the kitchen when Serena finally emerged from our bedroom, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Designer suit, perfect makeup, not a hair out of place. She'd always been beautiful, but somewhere along the way, that beauty had become a weapon she wielded against anyone who didn't give her what she wanted. "We need to talk," she said, pouring herself coffee into her favorite mug, the one I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary. "About your post last night?" She had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "Alex, I didn't mean for you to find out that way." "How did you mean for me to find out? Were you planning to send me a memo? Maybe a formal press release?" "Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. That was rich, coming from someone who just announced her affair to 3,000 Instagram followers. "So, what's the plan here, Serena? You move in with Brent and I just disappear quietly? Maybe post something about how we're consciously uncoupling or whatever term is trending this week." She set down her mug and looked at me with those green eyes that used to make my heart race. Now they just looked cold. "I want you out by the weekend." "This is my house, too." My name is on the deed, my income paid for most of it. She checked her phone, already losing interest in the conversation. I've been supporting your little computer hobby for years. It's time you learned to stand on your own. Computer hobby. I'd built 3 successful businesses from the ground up, sold 2 of them, and now worked as a consultant for companies that paid me more in a month than most people made in a year. But because I worked from home and didn't wear suits to an office every day, it was just a hobby. What about our friends, our families? They'll understand. These things happen. She grabbed her purse and keys. I'm staying at Brent's place for a few days while you figure out your living situation. Try not to make this harder than it needs to be. She paused at the door, and for a moment, I thought she might show some trace of the woman I'd married. Some hint of regret or sadness about ending 12 years together. Instead, she smiled. Oh, and Alex? You might want to delete that dating profile you've been hiding. It's not a good look for a man your age. The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving me alone in our kitchen with the morning light streaming through windows we'd picked out together, in a house we'd bought together, surrounded by the remnants of a life I'd thought was real. Dating profile. I didn't have a dating profile, but apparently I was about to get one, along with whatever other surprises Serena had planned for our divorce proceedings. I pulled out my laptop and got to work. If Serena thought she could control the narrative, she was about to learn something about her husband that 12 years of marriage had never taught her. I wasn't the kind of man who went down without a fight. The first thing I did was call my old friend, Frankie Martinez. We'd gone to high school together, and while I'd gone into computers, he'd become a private investigator, the kind of guy who knew where all the bodies were buried in our small Maine town, metaphorically speaking. Alex Porter, he said when he picked up. Haven't heard from you in months. Let me guess, marital problems? How did you know? Because happily married men don't call PI friends at 8 in the morning. Plus, I saw Serena's Instagram post. Half the town did. She's not exactly being subtle about it. That stung more than I'd expected. What are people saying? Mostly that they're not surprised. Serena's been making the rounds at every networking event and charity function with this Brent character for months. Your name hasn't come up much. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. I need information, Frankie. Everything you can find on Brent Mallory. Business dealings, personal life, anything that might be useful. Planning some revenge? Planning to protect myself. Serena's already trying to paint me as some kind of deadbeat who was holding her back. I have a feeling this divorce is going to get ugly. Give me 24 hours. And Alex, be careful. Guys like Mallory usually have lawyers on speed dial. After hanging up with Frankie, I started my own investigation. 15 years in IT had taught me that people leave digital footprints everywhere, and most of them have no idea how easy those footprints are to follow. Brent Mallory's online presence was exactly what I'd expected. LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords about synergistic solutions and paradigm shifts. Instagram account showcasing his penthouse apartment, expensive cars, and exotic vacations. Twitter feed that was 90% humble bragging and 10% motivational quotes stolen from better men. But it was his business filings that got interesting. Mallory Innovations LLC had been incorporated just 6 months ago, right around the time he'd started working with Serena's company. His previous venture, a food delivery app called Fresh Dash, had folded after 18 months and 3 rounds of funding. Before that, he'd tried his hand at cryptocurrency, sustainable fashion, and something called disruptive pet care solutions. The pattern was clear. Brent was a serial entrepreneur who jumped from trend to trend, burning through investor money and leaving failed businesses in his wake. He was also heavily leveraged, with loans against his penthouse, his cars, and pretty much everything else he owned. So what was a guy like that doing with a stable, successful woman like Serena? And more importantly, what was Serena getting out of it besides a younger man and some Instagram-worthy photo opportunities? My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Porter? This is Erica Chen. I work as an assistant at Feldman Associates. I think we should talk. Erica. I knew the name. Serena had mentioned her before, usually in the context of complaints about incompetent support staff. Young, ambitious, probably underpaid and overworked. What about? I'd rather not discuss it over the phone. Can you meet me for lunch? Somewhere away from the office? We agreed to meet at Murphy's Diner, a place on the other side of town where Serena would never be caught dining. I spent the rest of the morning going through our joint accounts, making copies of financial records, and preparing for whatever legal battle was coming. Erica turned out to be younger than I'd expected, maybe 25, with sharp eyes, and the kind of nervous energy that comes from working for demanding bosses. She was already sitting in a corner booth when I arrived, stirring a cup of coffee she clearly hadn't touched. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as I sat down. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "What's this about, Erica?" She glanced around the diner, then leaned forward. "I know about Mrs. Porter and Mr. Mallory. I've been covering for her for months, rescheduling meetings, making excuses for why she's unavailable. I even booked their hotel rooms for that conference last weekend. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of being treated like I'm stupid, and because what they're doing isn't just about having an affair." She pulled out her phone and showed me a series of text messages. "Look at these." The messages were between Serena and Brent, discussing confidential client information from Feldman Associates. Marketing strategies, budget allocations, upcoming campaigns, the kind of insider knowledge that would be worth millions to a competitor. "Brent's been pumping her for information about our clients," Erica continued. "He's planning to launch a competing agency and steal our biggest accounts. Mrs. Porter thinks they're going to run it together, but I've seen his real business plan. Her name isn't on it anywhere." The pieces were falling into place. Brent wasn't just using Serena for her body or her social connections. He was using her for corporate espionage, gathering intelligence to destroy the company she'd worked at for 8 years. And Serena, blinded by infatuation and midlife crisis, was handing him everything he needed. "Why come to me with this?" Erica's jaw tightened. "Because Mrs. Porter has been throwing me under the bus for months, blaming me for her mistakes while she's been distracted by her boy toy. And because Mr. Feldman is starting to ask questions about some of the information that's been leaking, I'm not going down for her choices. What do you want from me? Help me document everything. I've been keeping records, but I need someone who understands how to preserve digital evidence properly. Someone who knows how to make sure the right people see it at the right time." I studied her face. Erica was smart, probably smarter than Serena gave her credit for, and she was angry, which made her dangerous to the people who'd been using her. "What's in it for you?" "Revenge," she said simply. "Mrs. Porter destroyed my reputation at that company. She made me lie to clients, cover up her mistakes, and take the blame when things went wrong. Now, she's about to take down the whole agency for some guy who's going to dump her the minute he gets what he wants." I thought about Serena's parting shot that morning, about the fake dating profile she'd probably already created in my name, about 12 years of marriage ending with an Instagram post and a demand that I be out by the weekend. "What do you need me to do?" Erica smiled for the first time since I'd met her. "I need you to help me save these text messages, emails, and file transfers in a way that will hold up in court. And then I need you to help me make sure Mr. Feldman sees everything before it's too late." "When?" "Mrs. Porter is presenting Mallory's proposal to the executive team tomorrow morning. She thinks she's helping him pitch a partnership deal, but it's actually a hostile takeover plan. Once he gets access to our client database and financial records, Feldman Associates is finished." I pulled out my laptop. "Let's get started." We spent the next 3 hours in that diner, copying files, organizing evidence, and building a timeline of Serena and Brent's corporate espionage operation. Erica had been more thorough than I'd expected, keeping detailed records of every suspicious request, every confidential document that had gone missing, every meeting that had been rescheduled to accommodate Serena's secret activities. By the time we were finished, we had enough evidence to destroy both of them professionally. The question was how to use it for maximum impact. "Mr. Feldman needs to see this tonight," Erica said, "before the presentation tomorrow." "What about Serena? What about her?" I thought about my wife, probably at Brent's penthouse right now, planning her new life with a man who was using her as thoroughly as she'd been using me. Part of me wanted to warn her, to give her a chance to back out before everything exploded. But then I remembered her smile as she'd left that morning, the casual cruelty in her voice as she'd told me to be out by the weekend, the Instagram post that had announced to the world that I wasn't enough for her anymore. "Send it to Feldman," I said. "All of it." Erica nodded and started typing on her phone. "He's going to be furious." "Good. Fury makes people do stupid things. And when people do stupid things, they create opportunities." "Opportunities for what?" I closed my laptop and looked out the diner window at the gray Maine sky. "For justice, or revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing." Harold Feldman was old school, 72 years old, built his marketing agency from nothing, and had a reputation for loyalty to his employees and absolute ruthlessness toward anyone who betrayed him. He'd hired Serena 8 years ago when she was just another ambitious MBA with big dreams and bigger debts. According to Erica, he treated his staff like family, which meant he took betrayal very personally. The email went out at 6 p.m. on Tuesday evening, just as Serena would be getting ready for dinner at some expensive restaurant with her new partner. Erica had crafted it perfectly, professional, factual, and devastating. Screenshots of text messages, copies of confidential documents that had been shared, a timeline of suspicious activities, and a detailed analysis of how Mallory's business plan would destroy Feldman Associates. I was home, making dinner for one and trying not to think about how quiet the house felt, when my phone rang. "Alex, it's Erica. Mr. Feldman wants to see you." "Me? Why?" "Because you're married to the person who's been stealing from him for months. He wants to know what you knew and when you knew it." "Fair enough. When and where?" "His office, 9 p.m. And Alex, bring a lawyer." Harold Feldman's office occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the harbor. He was waiting for me when I arrived, along with his attorney, a sharp-looking woman named Patricia Reyes, who'd built a reputation as the toughest corporate lawyer in Maine. "Mr. Porter," Feldman said without getting up from behind his massive oak desk. "Thank you for coming." "Mr. Feldman, Ms. Reyes." I took the chair across from them, trying to project calm confidence while my heart hammered in my chest. "Let's cut to the chase," Reyes said, opening a thick folder. "Your wife has been sharing confidential information with Brent Mallory for at least 4 months. Information that he's been using to plan a competing business that would destroy my client's company. The question is, what did you know about this?" "Nothing until today." "That's convenient?" "It's also true." I pulled out my own folder, copies of the evidence Erica and I had compiled. "I learned about my wife's affair yesterday morning when she posted about it on Instagram. I learned about the corporate espionage this afternoon when Erica Chen contacted me." Feldman leaned forward. "Why would my assistant contact you?" "Because she's been covering for Serena for months, and she's tired of being treated like an accomplice. She wanted help preserving the evidence properly." Reyes flipped through the documents I'd provided. These are very thorough, almost like they were compiled by someone with experience in digital forensics. "I work in IT. I know how to preserve electronic evidence." "Why should we believe you weren't involved?" Feldman asked. "Married couples share everything. Pillow talk, financial pressures, career ambitions." I thought about how to answer that. The truth was complicated and embarrassing, but it was all I had. "Mr. Feldman, my wife has been planning to leave me for months. She's been hiding money, meeting with divorce lawyers, and apparently creating fake evidence to use against me in court. The last thing she would do is include me in her business plans. I was an obstacle to be removed, not a partner to be trusted. Feldman studied my face for a long moment. Erica says you helped her organize this evidence. Why? Because I'm angry. Because my wife destroyed our marriage for a man who's been using her. And because I believe in consequences. Revenge, you mean? Justice. Serena made her choices. Now she gets to live with the results. Reyes closed the folder. Mr. Mallory's presentation is scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow. Mrs. Porter is supposed to introduce him to our executive team and recommend that we enter into a partnership agreement. What are you going to do? Feldman smiled, and for the first time since I'd walked into his office, he looked genuinely pleased. We're going to let them make their presentation, all of it, and then we're going to destroy them both. I left the meeting feeling like I'd just lit a very long fuse on a very large bomb. Serena had no idea what was waiting for her in the morning. She probably thought she was about to become a partner in Brent's new venture, maybe even get a promotion out of the deal. Instead, she was walking into a trap that would end her career and possibly land her in legal trouble for corporate espionage. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Having second thoughts about your little revenge plot? It's not too late to warn her. Brent. Somehow he'd gotten my number and was trying to play mind games. I wondered if he knew about the meeting I'd just left, or if he was just fishing for information. I typed back, "Who is this?" "Come on, Alex. We both know your marriage was over long before I came along. Serena deserves better than a man who can't even support his own wife." Support his own wife. That was interesting phrasing, especially coming from someone whose business ventures had a 100% failure rate. "You're right," I replied. "She deserves someone honest. Good luck tomorrow." The response came quickly. "What happens tomorrow?" I turned off my phone without answering. Let him wonder. The next morning, I drove to a coffee shop across the street from Feldman Associates and waited. The presentation was scheduled to start at 10, and I wanted to be close enough to see the aftermath. At 9:30, Serena's BMW pulled into the parking garage, followed closely by Brent's flashy red Tesla. They walked into the building together, Serena in her power suit and Brent in his designer casual wear, both of them looking confident and completely unaware of what was about to happen. At 10:15, my phone rang. Erica. "It's over," she said. Mr. Feldman let them give their whole presentation, all 20 minutes of it. Mr. Mallory laid out his entire business plan, explained how he was going to steal our clients, even bragged about having inside information about our operations. What did Serena do? She sat there smiling like she was about to get promoted to partner, right up until Mr. Feldman started asking questions about where Mr. Mallory had gotten his information. And then Ms. Reyes walked in with a box of evidence and 2 security guards. Mrs. Porter went white as a sheet. Mr. Mallory tried to run. I could picture it. Brent's carefully constructed confidence crumbling the moment he realized he'd been set up. Serena's horror as she understood that her career was over and her new relationship was built on lies. What happens now? Security is escorting them out of the building. Ms. Reyes is filing a restraining order to keep them away from company property. And Mr. Feldman is calling every agency in town to make sure they never work in marketing again. I watched through the coffee shop window as Serena and Brent emerged from the building, flanked by security guards. Even from across the street, I could see that Serena was crying. Brent was on his phone, probably calling his lawyer. They stood on the sidewalk for a few minutes, arguing. Brent kept gesturing angrily, while Serena seemed to be pleading with him about something. Finally, he got in his Tesla and drove away, leaving her standing alone in front of the building where she'd worked for 8 years. She looked lost. For a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the Instagram post, the casual cruelty of her dismissal, the fake dating profile she'd probably created to make me look pathetic in divorce court. I finished my coffee and drove home to wait for whatever came next. Serena came home that afternoon like a hurricane making landfall. I heard her car in the driveway, then the front door slamming hard enough to rattle the windows. She found me in my office, working at my computer as if nothing had happened. "You did this," she said from the doorway. Her perfect makeup was smeared, her designer suit wrinkled, and her hands were shaking with rage. "You destroyed my career." I looked up from my screen. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Alex. Harold Feldman had evidence that could only have come from you. Text messages, emails, documents I shared with Brent. You've been spying on me." "Actually, your assistant compiled most of that evidence. Erica Chen. Remember her? The woman you've been throwing under the bus for months while you were playing corporate spy for your boyfriend?" Serena's face went through several expressions: surprise, anger, and finally something that looked like fear. "Erica wouldn't dare." "She dared. Turns out people don't like being used as scapegoats while their boss commits corporate espionage." "It wasn't espionage. Brent and I were planning a legitimate business partnership." I laughed, and the sound was harsher than I'd intended. "Serena, he was using you. The business plan Erica showed me didn't have your name anywhere on it. You were never going to be his partner. You were just the inside source he needed to steal Feldman's clients." "That's not true." "Where is he now?" She didn't answer, but her expression told me everything I needed to know. Brent had abandoned her the moment things got complicated, just like he'd abandoned every other failed venture in his past. "He's going to call," she said, but she didn't sound convinced. "This is just a setback. We'll figure something out." "Serena, sit down. We need to talk." "I'm not taking orders from you anymore." "Fine. Stand there. But you need to understand what's happening here." I turned my computer screen toward her. "Patricia Reyes filed a civil lawsuit against both of you this afternoon. Corporate espionage, breach of fiduciary duty, theft of trade secrets. The damages they're seeking would bankrupt both of you." She stared at the screen, her face going pale. "They can't prove anything." "They have your text messages with Brent discussing confidential client information. They have copies of documents you shared with him. They have a timeline showing exactly when information was leaked and when it showed up in his business plan." I clicked through the evidence files. "Erica documented everything, Serena, everything. Why are you doing this to me?" The question hung in the air between us. Why was I doing this? For revenge? For justice? Because I was hurt and angry and wanted her to suffer the way she'd made me suffer? Maybe all of those reasons were true. "You posted that photo," I said finally. "You announced to the world that I wasn't your real partner anymore. You humiliated me in front of our friends, our families, everyone we know. And then you told me to be out of our house by the weekend like I was some kind of tenant you were evicting. I was trying to be honest about our relationship. You were trying to hurt me, and you succeeded. But you made one mistake, Serena. You assumed I was weak. You assumed I would just disappear quietly and let you rewrite our history however you wanted." My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. "What?" Serena demanded. Brent's Tesla was just repossessed. Apparently, he missed several payments while he was busy planning his corporate takeover. Serena grabbed for my phone, but I pulled it away. "That's not possible. He has money. He has investments. He has debts, lots of them. The penthouse is mortgaged to the hilt, the cars are all leased or financed, and his previous business ventures left him owing money to investors all over the country." I stood up and walked to the window. "Your real partner is broke, Serena, and now, thanks to the lawsuit, he's unemployable in this industry." She sank into the chair behind her, the fight going out of her all at once. "This can't be happening." "It gets worse. Feldman is calling every marketing agency in New England. By tomorrow morning, everyone in the industry will know what you did. Your career is over." "You're enjoying this." I considered that. Was I enjoying watching my wife's life fall apart? The woman I'd loved for 12 years, who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my hopes for the future? Maybe I was, and maybe that said something ugly about who I'd become. I'm not enjoying it, I said, but I'm not sorry about it either. You made your choices, Serena. You chose to betray your company, your marriage, and everyone who trusted you. Now you get to live with the consequences. She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. When she finally looked up, there was something different in her eyes. Not anger or fear, but calculation. What do you want, Alex? What do you mean? To make this go away. To keep me out of court, out of bankruptcy, out of professional ruin. What do you want? I thought about it. What did I want? An apology? A confession? Some acknowledgement that she'd been wrong to treat me like a disposable inconvenience in her life. I want you to tell the truth, I said, to everyone. Our friends, our families, anyone who asks. I want you to admit that you destroyed our marriage for a man who was using you. I want you to stop pretending that I was the problem. And if I do that, I'll ask Erica to talk to Feldman about a settlement. Maybe they'll agree to drop the criminal charges in exchange for financial compensation and a non-disclosure agreement. What about us? There is no us anymore, Serena. You made that clear yesterday morning. She nodded slowly, tears starting to flow again. For the first time since this whole mess started, she looked like the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, scared, human. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant for things to go this far. I know, I said. And I did know. Serena wasn't evil, just selfish and short-sighted and willing to hurt other people to get what she wanted. In another life, maybe we could have worked through our problems. Maybe we could have found a way back to each other. But not in this life. Too much had been said, too much damage had been done. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. I'll call Erica in the morning, I said. We'll see what we can work out. Serena stood up and walked toward the door, then stopped. Alex? What you said about Brent using me. Did you really mean that? I pulled up his business plan on my computer and showed her the organizational chart. CEO, Brent Mallory. CFO, to be determined. VP of Operations, to be determined. VP of Marketing, to be determined. No mention of Serena anywhere. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then walked out of the room without another word. An hour later, I heard her car start up and drive away. She didn't come back that night, or the next. When I finally went into our bedroom to check, half her clothes were gone, along with her jewelry and personal items. She'd left her wedding ring on the dresser, next to a note that said simply, I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. But it was a start. The story broke in the local business journal 3 days later. Marketing executive and entrepreneur accused of corporate espionage. The article was factual and devastating, laying out the timeline of Serena and Brent's scheme in clinical detail. By noon, it had been picked up by the regional papers and several industry websites. My phone started ringing immediately. Friends who wanted to know if the stories were true. Family members who'd seen the articles online. Reporters looking for a comment from the estranged husband. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I drove to Murphy's Diner to meet with Erica and discuss damage control. She was already there when I arrived, looking exhausted but oddly relieved. How's Feldman handling the publicity? I asked. Better than expected. The story makes it clear that the company was the victim, not the perpetrator. He's actually gotten several calls from potential clients who are impressed by how quickly he identified and stopped the security breach. What about Serena and Brent? Mr. Mallory's lawyer is trying to negotiate a settlement, but Ms. Reyes isn't interested in deals. She wants to make an example of them. Erica stirred her coffee absently. Mrs. Porter called me yesterday. She was crying, begging me to talk to Mr. Feldman about dropping the charges. What did you tell her? That she should have thought about consequences before she decided to treat me like dirt for 6 months. I understood the sentiment, but something about Erica's tone bothered me. There was a coldness there that reminded me uncomfortably of myself over the past few days. Erica, what do you want out of this? What do you mean? You've already proven your point. Serena's career is over, Brent's business is finished, and Feldman knows you're not the weak link in his organization. What else are you hoping to accomplish? She was quiet for a moment, then looked directly at me. I want them to suffer the way they made me suffer. I want everyone to know what kind of people they really are. I want them to lose everything. And after that? After that, I get promoted to Mrs. Porter's old job, and I never have to worry about being someone's scapegoat again. I studied her face, seeing myself reflected in her anger and determination. Was this what I looked like to other people? This cold, calculating person who'd forgotten the difference between justice and vengeance? Erica, be careful. Revenge has a way of consuming the people who pursue it. Is that what you think you're doing? Pursuing revenge? I don't know anymore. Maybe I started out looking for justice, but somewhere along the way, it became something else. I pushed my untouched coffee away. I destroyed my wife's life because she hurt my pride. That's not justice. That's just cruelty. She destroyed your marriage. She ended our marriage. There's a difference. And maybe, if I'm being honest, it needed to end. We'd been making each other miserable for years. The affair was just the final symptom of a relationship that was already broken. Erica shook her head. You're being too generous. She betrayed you, she betrayed her company, and she betrayed everyone who trusted her. She deserves whatever happens to her. Maybe she was right. Maybe Serena did deserve everything that was happening to her. But that didn't mean I had to be the one making it happen. I'm done, I said. I'm not going to help you destroy what's left of Serena's life, and I'm not going to keep feeding my own anger by watching her suffer. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm going to call Patricia Reyes and recommend a settlement. Serena pays back whatever money Feldman lost, signs a non-disclosure agreement, and agrees never to work in marketing again. In exchange, they drop the criminal charges and end the public humiliation. Erica's eyes flashed with anger. After everything she did to both of us? Especially after everything she did to both of us. Because if we keep this up, we're going to become the kind of people who destroy lives for sport, and I don't want to be that person. I left the diner feeling lighter than I had in days, despite Erica's obvious disappointment. For the first time since this whole mess started, I was making a decision based on who I wanted to be rather than who I wanted to hurt. The call to Patricia Reyes went better than expected. She was a pragmatic woman who understood that prolonged litigation was expensive and unpredictable. If Serena was willing to make financial restitution and accept professional exile, Feldman might be willing to avoid the risks of a trial. What about Mallory? She asked. He's not my problem. Do whatever you think is appropriate. And your wife's cooperation? Can you guarantee it? I can ask. Whether she agrees is up to her. I found Serena at her sister's house across town, looking like she'd aged 5 years in the past week. She came to the door in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, her hair unwashed and her eyes red from crying. Alex, I wasn't expecting you. Can we talk? She led me to the kitchen, where her sister Michelle was conspicuously absent. We sat across from each other at the small table where we'd eaten countless family dinners over the years, back when we were happy. I talked to Patricia Reyes, I said. She's willing to discuss a settlement. Serena's face brightened with hope. What kind of settlement? You pay back whatever Feldman lost because of the information you shared with Brent. You sign an agreement never to work in marketing again. You accept full responsibility for what happened and agree not to blame the company or anyone else. What do I get in return? They drop the criminal charges. No jail time, no felony conviction, no public trial. She was quiet for a long time, thinking it over. What about Brent? What about him? Is he getting the same deal? I looked at her carefully. Serena, you know Brent isn't coming back, right? He's not going to ride in and save you from this mess. He's probably already planning his next scheme with his next victim. He said he loved me. He said what he needed to say to get what he wanted, just like he's probably saying to some other woman right now. She started crying again, and for a moment, I wanted to comfort her. 12 years of marriage don't disappear overnight, even when they end in betrayal and lawyers and public humiliation. But I stayed in my chair and let her cry. Some pain has to be felt before it can heal. I'll take the deal, she said finally. Whatever they want, I'll agree to it. Good. I'll call Reyes in the morning. Alex, what happens to us now? We get divorced. We divide our assets, we sign our papers, and we try to build separate lives. Do you hate me? I thought about that question. Did I hate her? A week ago, I might have said yes. But sitting in her sister's kitchen, watching her cry over the wreckage of her life, I found that most of my anger had burned itself out. No, I said, I don't hate you, but I don't forgive you either. Maybe someday, but not yet. She nodded, accepting that. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. About the Instagram post, about the way I treated you, about all of it. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix what's broken. I left her there and drove home to our empty house, feeling like I'd finally closed a chapter that had been dragging on too long. Tomorrow, I'd call the lawyers and start the process of officially ending our marriage. I'd put the house on the market, divide our possessions, and figure out what came next. For the first time in weeks, I was looking forward instead of backward. The settlement was finalized 2 weeks later. Serena paid Feldman Associates $200,000, essentially wiping out her savings and retirement accounts, and signed agreements that effectively banned her from working in marketing anywhere in New England. The criminal charges were dropped, and both sides agreed not to discuss the case publicly. Brent wasn't so lucky. Without Serena's cooperation, he had no leverage to negotiate a deal. The civil lawsuit proceeded, and within a month, he'd lost his penthouse, his cars, and what remained of his reputation. Last I heard, he'd moved back in with his parents in Connecticut and was working at a call center. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall. He'd gotten what he deserved, but watching someone's life collapse, even someone who'd hurt me, wasn't as rewarding as I'd expected it to be. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. We split our assets down the middle, sold the house, and went our separate ways. Serena moved to Florida to live with her parents while she figured out what to do with the rest of her life. I bought a smaller place closer to downtown and tried to remember who I'd been before I became someone's husband. It wasn't easy. 12 years is a long time to be part of a couple, and learning to be single again felt like learning a foreign language. But gradually, I found my rhythm. I took on new clients, traveled more, reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage. I even started dating, though I was careful to avoid anyone who reminded me too much of Serena. A year later, I ran into Erica at a coffee shop downtown. She'd gotten Serena's old job at Feldman Associates and seemed to be thriving in her new role. She looked happy, confident, successful, everything she'd wanted to become. "Alex," she said, approaching my table. "How are you?" "Good. Busy. You look well." "I am. The promotion has been everything I hoped for." She paused. "I heard about your divorce being finalized. I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was the right thing for both of us." "Any regrets? About how everything went down?" I thought about that. Did I regret exposing Serena's affair and corporate espionage? Did I regret the public humiliation, the financial ruin, the complete destruction of her career and reputation? "Some," I said honestly. "I think we went too far, both of us. We let our anger turn us into people we didn't recognize." Erica looked uncomfortable. "I don't regret it. She got what she deserved." "Maybe. But revenge isn't as satisfying as you think it's going to be. It doesn't heal the hurt or fix what's broken, it just creates new problems. Easy to say when you've moved on. I moved on because I chose to let go of the anger. As long as you're focused on what other people deserve, you're not focused on what you want for yourself. She didn't look convinced, but she nodded politely and excused herself. I watched her walk away, hoping she'd figure out the difference between justice and vengeance before it consumed her the way it had almost consumed me. That night, I deleted the last photos of Serena from my phone and threw away the box of mementos I'd been keeping from our marriage. Wedding photos, anniversary cards, vacation souvenirs, all of it went into the trash. It was time to stop looking backward and start building something new. The story could have ended there, with lessons learned and lives rebuilt. But life isn't that neat, and people aren't that simple. Sometimes the past has a way of reaching into the future, demanding one final accounting.